What is up guys, my name is Ignas, welcome back to the channel. We are still looking for the best pharma name, and yesterday I came upon this article on The Motley Fool, 2 ridiculously cheap growth stocks to buy. The author suggests taking a look into the names, as they are really solid growth picks, and investors are overlooking them. So one of those is Viacom CBS, but the one we are interested in is Bristol Myers Squibb, ticker symbol BMY. The author further explains why investors would have missed it. On the year to date, the shares of this healthcare stock are down about 2%, while the S&P 500 went up for 16%. Also in the last 12 months, the company had a loss of $5 billion US. But then we come into the reasoning why it could be a great pick to buy into. So first, they bought a biopharmaceutical company Myocardia for $11 billion. Their revenues increased 9% year over year to $22.8 billion, and earnings went from a loss of $846 million in 2020 to $3.1 billion in profit today. And if we take a look into the forward price earnings, for Bristol Myers it is currently at around 8, which is really cheap compared to other healthcare names, where Merck and Amgen both have a forward price earnings at around 13. So I have added 2 more pharma names, and for today's comparison we have Novo Nordisk, ticker symbol NVO, Bristol Myers Squibb, BMY, and Sanofi, ticker SNY. So to make the comparison possible, we will be looking into 8 different factors. Last 4 quarterly earnings results, annual revenue growth, analysts' price targets, forward price earnings ratio, price to sales ratio, return on equity, current ratio, and dividend yield. The best company under each factor will get a point, so it is possible to have from 0 to 8 points. And in the end, the stock with the most points will be considered the winner of this comparison. I hope that the rules were clear, so let's begin. First factor will be the last 4 quarterly earnings results. When a company reports earnings, they are compared to expectations of analysts. So earnings can either beat expectations, meet them, or miss them. We will consider that beating expectations is a +1, meeting +0.5, and missing 0. Then we sum the results up to a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 4, and in the end, the stock with the highest sum gets a point for this factor. So these are quarterly earnings for Novo Nordisk, and Q3 of 2020 missed expectations, Q4 beat, Q1 of 2021 beat expectations, and Q2 beat. So with 3 beats and 1 miss in quarterly earnings, we get a sum of 3. Quarterly earnings for Bristol Myers Squibb, and Q3 of 2020 beat expectations, Q4 beat, Q1 of 2021 missed expectations, and Q2 beat. So with 3 beats and 1 miss in quarterly earnings, we again get a sum of 3. Quarterly earnings for Sanofi, and Q3 of 2020 missed expectations, Q4 beat, Q1 of 2021 beat expectations, and Q2 beat. So with 3 beats and 1 miss in quarterly earnings, we again get a sum of 3. Results for the last 4 quarterly earnings factor are in the table, and with sums of 3, no one is assigned a point for this factor. Next factor will be the annual revenue growth. As potential investors, we want to find that the revenues of a company are on a steady increase. This means that we will take a look into the revenues of the 4 most recent years and compare them one by one. If revenue was on the increase from one year to the next, we will consider it as a +1, and if it was on the decrease, it will be a +0. Then we sum the results up to a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 3, and in the end, the stock with the highest sum gets a point for this factor. So these are revenues for NVO. So going into 2018, there was an increase to 111.83 billion Danish krones. Then into 2019 we had an increase to 122 billion, and into 2020 there was another increase to 126 billion Danish krones. So with 3 increases in annual revenues, we get a sum of 3. Annual revenues for BMY, and going into 2018 there was an increase to 22.56 billion US. Then into 2019 we had an increase to 26.14 billion, and into 2020 we had another increase to 42.52 billion dollars. So with 3 increases in annual revenues, we again get a sum of 3. Annual revenues for SNY, and going into 2018 there was a decrease to 35.68 billion euros. Then into 2019 we had an increase to 37.63 billion, and going into 2020 there was another decrease to 37.37 billion euros. So with 1 increase and 2 decreases in annual revenues, we get a sum of 1. Results for the annual revenue growth factor are in the table, and with sums of 3, both Novo Nordisk and Bristol Myers each gets a point. Factor number 3 are the analyst's price targets. As investors, we want to check how far the current share price is away from the average analyst price target. If the current price is under the average target, we will consider the stock as undervalued, and in the end, the company which share price is furthest away from the average analyst target to the lower side gets a point for this factor. So for Novo Nordisk, we have two price targets of analysts. They range from the lows of $114 to the highs of $117 per share. The average is at $116.31, and the current share price is at $96.60. This means that there is still around 20.4% room for the current price to reach the average target of analysts. For Bristol Myers, we have 17 price targets of analysts. They range from the lows of 66 to the highs of $144 per share. The average is at $80.06, and the current share price is at $59.21. So there is still around 35.2% of room for the current price to reach the average target of analysts. For Sanofi, we have 4 price targets of analysts. They range from the lows of $58 to the highs of $71 per share. The average is at $65, and the current share price is at $48.33. So there is still around 34.5% of room for the current price to reach the average target of analysts. Results for the analyst's price targets factor are in the table, and with most room for growth, Bristol Myers gets another point. Factor number 4 is the forward price to earnings ratio. It is calculated by taking the current share price and dividing it by the estimated future earnings per share. This is the standard price to earnings calculation with the difference that earnings here are predicted by analysts. So in the end, the stock with the lowest forward price to earnings ratio gets a point for this factor. For NVO, the forward price to earnings is at 29.01. Forward price to earnings for Bristol Myers is at 7.34, and Sanofi has a forward price to earnings at 11.03. Forward price to earnings ratios are in the table, and with the lowest value, Bristol Myers gets another point. Next factor is the price to sales ratio. It is calculated by taking the company's market cap and dividing it by the trailing 12 months worth of sales. The formula suggests to be looking for a company with a low market cap and a high result in sales. So in the end, the stock with the lowest price to sales ratio gets a point for this factor. For Novo Nordisk, we have a price to sales at 1.7. Price to sales for BMY is at 2.96. And Sanofi has a price to sales at 3.23. Price to sales ratios are in the table, and with the lowest value, Novo Nordisk gets the second point. Factor number 6 is return on equity. The percentage here suggests how well the company is managed and if money from investors are handled efficiently. So in the end, the stock with the highest return on equity percentage gets a point for this factor. For NVO, the return on equity is at 70.63%. Return on equity for Bristol Myers is at minus 11.76%, and Sanofi has a return on equity at 9.22%. Return on equity percentages are in the table, and with the highest value, Novo Nordisk gets one more point. Next factor is the current ratio. It is calculated by taking the current assets and dividing them by the current liabilities. As potential investors, we want to find that the company is able to cover its debts with assets, but also that they are actually being leveraged. So in the end, the stock with the highest current ratio under 3 gets a point for this factor. Novo Nordisk has the current ratio at 1.06. Current ratio for Bristol Myers is at 1.54, and Sanofi has the current ratio at 1.55. Current ratios are in the table, and with the highest value under 3, Sanofi gets the first point. The last factor is the dividend yield. It is calculated by taking the annual dividend per share and dividing it by the share price. A high yield may suggest that profits are being shared with shareholders, and that is a great passive income source that we as potential investors are looking for. So in the end, the stock with the highest dividend yield percentage gets a point for this factor. Novo Nordisk is paying an annual dividend of $1.47 per share, which is a yield of 1.54%. The annual dividend for Bristol Myers Squibb is at $1.96, which makes it a yield at 3.29%. And Sanofi pays an annual dividend of $1.93 per share, which is a dividend yield of 4.03%. Dividend yields are in the table, and with the highest percentage, Sanofi gets one more point. We can calculate the results, so Novo Nordisk has 3 points, Bristol Myers Squibb 3, and Sanofi 2. This means that we currently have a tie between Novo Nordisk and Bristol Myers. So let's remove Sanofi from the calculation and reassign the points. For the last 4 quarterly earnings factor, the point is not assigned. No point goes for the annual revenue growth factor too. For the analyst price targets factor, point goes to Bristol Myers. Forward price to earnings point to Bristol Myers again. Price to sales point to Novo Nordisk. Return on equity point to Novo Nordisk again. Current ratio point to Bristol Myers Squibb. And dividend yield point goes to Bristol Myers. We can now calculate the results, so Novo Nordisk has 2 points and Bristol Myers Squibb 4. This means that with 4 points, Bristol Myers Squibb is considered the winner of this comparison. And that was it. If you got value or new ideas, then make sure to push that thumbs up, it helps the channel a lot. Have you recently bought into any of the pharma names yourself? Share your best pick in a comment below. If you are interested to know exactly when I buy or sell any name, then consider memberships. By becoming a member, you will get access to Discord, where I share my stock watchlist and all the buys and sells exactly when I do them. This could be a great option to track my moves closely. Last week we already did a stock comparison on 3 other large pharmaceutical names, and there is also an update for our eToro stock trading portfolio. If you are interested in any of these, then click on a video currently on the screen. And that was it from my side. Thank you for watching, and I will be seeing you all in the next one.